Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and here we are as we're going into Valentine's Day. So you can see I'm in my Valentine office. I've got my Valentine tree, and I want you all to be my Valentine. And tonight's Valentine special guest is Wondra Chang, and she has a fabulous book that's just getting all kinds of attention. She just got a wonderful feature. Um, that she just shared with us. I was having a hard time getting that feature because you have to join the newspaper and everything. So thank you for sending us the actual copy. It was wonderful. And we're just so excited for you. And I'm thrilled to know that you've got 2 more books in the works. So I'm going to start, Wondra, with having, we're going to have you talk about your story and your book, Sonju. And then at the end, we'll open it up for discussion so everybody can ask questions and we can have our conversation. But I'm going to put you on speaker view, and I want you all to listen and learn all about Wondra Chang. So Wondra, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. You all look familiar to me because of the convention. I have seen them for over 7 days. So thank you.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Now you're down in San Antonio, Texas, and you've got quite a story on your journey here from your home country. Tell us a little bit about that.
I moved to Texas in it must have been 1980. Okay. And then I ended up here in San Antonio in 2006. And there is a reason why I ended up here. I used to have a private practice in Corpus Christi, Texas. Mm-hmm. And somebody told me to visit somebody in Victoria. So I wanted to see Victoria. So I called them up and says, okay, I'm coming. And they showed me around. They took me to the best restaurant in Victoria, y'all, Red Lobster. And we came back, and it was a 300-acre treatment center. And the person was the clinical director, and she introduced me to a person. He says, I want to introduce you to somebody. So I was interested. I was introduced, and I realized she was an HR person, human resources. So I figured I had a practice. I didn't think about working for somebody. So, but I was thinking, what the heck? I'm just going to find out what they offer. So I said, so how much do you pay? What is your offer? And she wrote it down, and she said, well, don't walk off, just keep talking. So I said, okay, I have room to negotiate. So I had a wonderful contract with them. They paid for moving and so forth. And then 9/11 happened soon after I was there. And then I don't remember exactly what year. I got married there, and there was the hurricane or something, Hurricane Rita. It was after the big hurricane in New Orleans. What was that?
Katrina.
It was after Katrina. So everybody was scared. So at that time I was retired, and I was playing mahjong with women, and their husbands were like mayors, hospital CEO, and so forth. And they get a phone call from their husbands. And these women come back to the mahjong table and said, y'all, they're going to evacuate the whole city. So I called my husband and I said, anchor everything outside, bring everything inside that you can, and we are leaving. So the next morning we got up at 4:30 and we left. So we went to the west, I-10 west, toward the sun, because it was raining hard in Houston, and there were people evacuating from Houston. Anyway, we had to drive all the way to New Mexico. There were no rooms, hotel rooms at the time. So after that, when we came back, it turned out that nobody evacuated. They changed their plan. So we said, well, we used to travel to San Antonio for weekend visits or whatnot. and we're not going to do this. So we decided to move to San Antonio. That's what happened. We drove like 900 miles to the west. So that's how I moved to San Antonio. And then I went back to work. So I worked, I worked for a treatment center for the adolescents. And before that, I divorced and I started writing Sonju, because that was the best time to write. Instead of getting angry, I thought I will use that constructively, that period constructively, because nobody was bothering me. So I started writing. So I had like about 500-page book. If it was made into a book, it would have been about 500 pages. And I thought that was too long. You know, Americans' attention span is not that long for a story. So I cut it down. It wasn't necessary to carry all the way through the women's lives afterwards. So I cut it down, and then I had to work. So I put it aside for close to 6 years. Wow. And I retired again. So I picked it up and I wrote. And the way I wrote is that I wrote alone without going to the critique group. So I didn't know what my level of writing was. So I went to a workshop, 7-day workshop, and all the words, you know, like I'm a psychotherapist and we have our own words, right?
Language, yeah.
The technical words we use. And it was the same thing with writing. And they kept saying, referring to my writing as distant narrator. I didn't know what that meant. It just went right over me. And so I had a hard time with basic terminology in writing while I was learning to write. So it took me a while to get there. And I started going to critique groups and whatnot, and somebody invited me to join a small critique group. And there were 3 others besides me, and they were all much better writers, experienced writers than I was. So I got a lot of help. You know, you need a lot of help in writing. So they were very good at critiquing and so forth. So I went through the whole entire manuscript 2 times with them. And I just sought help here and there. And I am a slow reader, so I really don't have time to read every book. So I choose really well-written books. So that helps also. You know, you have to read a lot too. And then, so what I noticed, what I try to do when I read is I studied the sentence, because I'm writing this in foreign language, just like Antonina over there. So I knew when I decided to write this, because nobody forced me to write this, I knew that it will take a long time for me, more time than English speakers. So I didn't mind that, because I accepted that. So it was a challenge for me to describe real delicate feelings, you know, other than not just the words that we use on a daily basis, on, you know, that usually describe surface that we see. So more inner thinking and feelings and such. It was a challenge, and I have a problem still, as you can hear, with articles and tense and preposition. I don't know if it as, you know, it should be of or for or, you know, whatever after the verb. I think it's called verb phrase or something. So I still have that problem, but I do my best, and I Google. There's a wonderful help in Google, and it says the word hassle, in a sentence, then it gives you a whole bunch of sentences that use the word hassle. That's a bad example, but anyway, so I did that a lot to get the right preposition. And as far as other things, I felt like if I get the tone right and the content right, the intention right, the rest of the minor grammars, like articles, editors will pick it up. So I didn't worry about it. I just wrote. So I got to the point where I felt comfortable. And so I had met my publisher during a convention, writers convention here in San Antonio. So she had a booth, and I walked around the floor and I talked to her and I told her about my writing, and I said I might be interested in sending it to them. And I did a lot of research on publishers. We have some local publishers, and I really liked the books that she represented. They're really good, high quality books. So I sent the manual, to her, manuscript to her, and I said, okay, here it is. So she wrote me back in a few days. She said, I read right straight through. Do you want to write a contract? And that's how it happened. Oh. I didn't even write a query letter. So, but she stresses that that's the exception. It doesn't happen that way. So as I was writing, because this is my first book, I was also learning to write at the same time. So at some point, because I have gone through this, I must have had close to 20 beta readers at different times. So I had some people do it, and then I rewrite, and then I will have it beta tested by other people and so forth. So it was done. And then I thought it was going to be just like, okay, she accepted. So, okay, how long does it take to get it printed? But it took me 16 months. They do a lot of things. And I got to look at it because it's a small press. My publisher involved me into copy editing, line editing, and all of that. So I learned a lot from that process. So then we had to gather reviewers. Most of you have published, and you know how the process goes. So we collect reviewers and have them write the blurb and all of that. So, and then we had to choose a book cover. And because my publisher doesn't have a lot of resources, she found a few samples of, what is it called, free pictures, Shutterbuck or something. And so she came up with this. There were a few others. I like this. So after that, see all the fonts, every detail. We are deciding what fonts to use, what color to use, and all of that. And I didn't know they actually have a license for the fonts. And it says, I like this font. And he said, oh, I don't think we have license. So then I choose something that's similar. So I think it has been very thoroughly edited because 3 people looked at it after we thought it was done. And she said it was a very clean manuscript when she got it. So the biggest challenge, even before it was published, was she said, well, you have to get involved in social media. You have to do marketing. And I want you to join this Pulpwood Queens. And I don't. So I said, okay. So I joined, and I am still confused about a lot of things. I'm confused about Facebook, just I couldn't get on this evening. So I'm learning, but marketing is it's a job that I haven't signed up for. I didn't count on having marketing job. It consumes me because I spend a lot of time on Facebook and I think about it, what to put on there. But I have made many, many good friends through this process. You know, I'm already made friends through on Facebook because same people, you know, somebody like Dara, she joined Reading Corner. I asked her to join. She joined Reading. She joined Pulpwood Queens, and she says good morning. We say good morning every morning. You know, so it's very nice. And there were a lot of others who have been very good to me. We have been good friends. And then through the convention, I really want to meet these people. Next time it has to be in person.
Yeah.
Because I'll make a lot of friends. I make friends very quickly and very easily, and I keep them for a long, long, long time. So I really want to meet the people I have seen at the convention on Zoom. So I'm looking forward to that. Any questions? I would be happy to talk about my childhood, my life in Korea, because I started writing when I was 10 years old. So, and it was published, my writing was published because it won the first place, province-wise. And over there, it's tough. It's not like you write it and you submit. They make you come to this city, big high school classroom. All these elementary school kids, they go there and they teach you, you know, you sit at a desk and they give you pencil and paper. And then the proctor says, okay, the title is start writing now. And then there's a time limit. And that's how the competition was done. So it was printed in the province-wide newspaper. I don't know what happened to it. My mother had it, but it got lost. I wonder if I go back to Korea, if I can go to the newspaper company and see if I can find it, because I would like to have a copy. So that was 10 years old. And in Korea, some of you have been to Korea and you know how the culture is in a way. And education is their obsession. It's a national obsession. So I, you know, wrote 5 short stories a day, every day when I was 10 years old, before I went to the competition. And then I moved to another school in a bigger city, and I had to study for middle school entrance exam. And like in Korea, Japan, and China, you have to pass because it's tiered. And so there are better schools and, you know, best schools and so forth. So you have to apply for one school one time nationwide. And so you have to pass the entrance exam for good middle school, same thing, high school and college. And college, you have to decide your major when you apply, and that's what you are applying and testing for. So in Korea, they go to medical school right after high school. They go to law school right after high school. It's their major. And it may be like that in, is that like that, Antonina, in your country too?
In whole Europe, it's like that. After high school, whatever you decide to study, you go straight into the program. So you go straight into medical school, law school, or whatever. So for example, I studied 1 year economics, and that's what I was going to graduate if I stayed in Belgrade, but I left.
Yeah.
So yes, it's the same.
A lot of the Korean students, Asian students, when they get a medical degree, they don't recognized it here in America, because in America you go to 4-year college first. So I think they have to go through some period to be licensed as a doctor or lawyer or whatever. So it was tough. And when I was 4 years old, there was Korean War in 1950. As you know, I was born in 1946. So, you know, Kathy, your father was in that war. He was 17. Lots of Americans died in that war. And it was a surprise attack. And even to this day, Koreans, my generation and older, they are very appreciative of Americans, because there's a lot of anti-American sentiment all over the world. But Korea is still very friendly. And before that, before the World War II, Korea was occupied by Japan for 35 years, and they were awful. They were cruel and they were awful. So there's a lot of animosity, and that's what the book also covers about that. You know, there's still that national pathos about, you know, Japan. And and then after it was liberated, American military became the new occupier. They didn't rule badly, but they needed that period, 3-year period. After that, it became a republic, so first president, and it was very corrupt, and it was a dictatorship, just like Antonina experienced in communist country. And until I came here to the United States in 1970, it was dictator after dictator. So I lived under dictatorship. So I really appreciate the freedom of speech, choice, all of that. But in Korea, another thing that is important is that in Europe there was division of Christian religions like Catholic, Orthodox, and such. In Korea, it was Confucian religion. It was Buddhist nation before it became a Confucian nation, and it became very, very oppressive especially toward women. So women's place was really low in the society. It's a patriarchy, and young people didn't have as much say in the adult world. So the impetus of this story is that at that time, divorce was very rare. So I thought that I heard of one woman that was divorced. So I thought, what would it have been like? Because this person, Sonju, was born in 1927. So 20 years before me. So what was it like? Because by the time I went to school, when I was in college, most of my classmates were still married through arranged marriage, most of them. And my generation, it was all, my mother's generation, it was all arranged marriage. So this person divorces because she had a boyfriend who she was not supposed to have. Because under Confucian way of life is that when boys and girls reach 8 years old, they shouldn't be together. But in Korea, you know, on elementary school, we were fine, we were co-ed. But after that, the girls go to girls' school, middle school, boys go to boys' middle school, high school. And college, it can be co-ed, but I chose to go to all women's university. And so I haven't had, we don't have any skills to deal with the opposite sex from middle school all the way up to college. So by that time, things have changed. So the parents are hoping, oh, you know, I wish my daughter or my son would find a partner and on their own that they can approve. And so when I went to university, the class president of my school, I studied journalism, I majored in journalism. And then they negotiate with the boys' school, co-ed school, but it's mostly boys. And they sell raffle ticket like thing, you know, there are two numbers, exact same numbers. So they sell one set to the boys, one set to the girls. You are supposed to find that number, your number. And if you were lucky, you had a cute boy and, you know, you didn't have a good evening. So that's how our interaction with boys began when we went to college. So up to high school, you are not supposed to talk to the boys, look at the boys. It was very oppressive. So it's, it may be hard for Westerners, especially Americans, to imagine, but that's how it was when I was growing up.
That's
Any
important.
questions?
It's important to know. And that's why reading your book is kind of opening our eyes, because some of the things I've known that you're talking about and some that I don't. But let's open it up for questions from everybody. I'm going to put us back on speaker view so I can see everybody. And if you have a question for Wondra, I'd love for you to ask. Anybody?
So Wondra, I really don't have a question, but I just want to say that your personal story is remarkable. You're an accomplished, determined woman, and I think that your own personal life story would make a fascinating tale. And I admire the fact that you just shared with us when you were born, and you have just released your first novel into the world. It was, I think, July of
Yes.
21. And just so impressive, to hear how tenacious you were through this process, from the point at which you decided that you wanted to write a novel up until the point at which you were able to give birth to this novel and find a publisher. So it's just so lovely to hear your story this evening. So thank you for sharing it for us.
Well, thank you so much.
My connection to Korea came when I was at a YWCA camp back in Pennsylvania, and they always had international counselors. So I got to know Milan Song, and she was our summer counselor. And at the end of the time, my parents were living near Washington, D.C., so we drove her home so she could be with relatives. And then I was selected for the Peace Corps to go into Korea. And I trained in Hilo, Hawaii. I was already living there. And the only reason I really accepted, because I had an out if it didn't work out. And the interesting thing was that they were actually discouraging women to go to Korea. This is 1969.
Yeah.
And of all the Peace Corps programs, couples could go back then, and it had the highest divorce rate among Peace Corps volunteers. So, and if you had a kid, some people had children with them, boy, if you had a boy baby, you've made it. But if you had a girl, and this is 1969, so I dropped out actually after 2 weeks, but I met the most wonderful people, and our instructor was just starting, speaking Korean. Our job was to teach English to the Tourist Association of Korea, because they're very interested in opening up the country to tourists and stuff like that. But it was interesting. We were really discouraged to not go. And I ended up dropping out and going back to Honolulu and got my BFA. But it was a wonderful experience. And I got to experience the food, because we go down to this hut. It was on the Big Island. So we would go down to Waimea Canyon. And I remember going down there one night, and they prepared this wonderful meal with the seaweed, I've always loved kimchi. In fact, I always craved kimchi when I was pregnant, and I was told, you're gonna have a boy. And I still like kimchi.
Good. They used to say, it smells because it is garlic and everything, and it's fermented, it's aged. But now it's considered healthy, health food. So everybody knows it, and they don't mind it. They don't seem to mind. If you all come down to San Antonio, let me know. I'll take you to a great Korean restaurant.
That'd be great. Well, I know the Historical Society is going to be there in 23. They had to go. Last year they were virtual, but they're planning on being in San Antonio in 23. So you might look into it, the Historical Novel Society.
Oh, I thought they had already in San Antonio. It's coming in 23?
Yeah, they had to go virtual. The hotel was all laid out, and they said, no, we still can't do it. So we did it online, but my understanding is it's going to be in 23, because we do every other.
In San Antonio?
So you should go look at the website.
And you
Yeah.
should join the society. It's international. And your book will fit in beautifully, which I have. So we've got 4 people up in Whatcom County reading it. So I think we've got Cheryl Bostrom, Abby's going to read it, Sarah Stamey and I. We're going to try to work out a Zoom time to do it. So probably at the end of the month. So
Yeah.
for
If you are sure you are coming, and hopefully, yeah, by that time, COVID is not a problem. I can have you stay at my condo. It's $35 a night as my guest.
oh, that'd be awesome.
That's a
Oh.
good deal.
Wonderful, everybody.
price.
Woo!
Yeah, anybody who wants to come visit, I can arrange that. And it's a queen size bed, bathroom, and so forth. And so, you know, it's a real pretty place. It's a small place. It's very, very private, very safe.
Well, it's a beautiful place. I had a friend who lived on North Padre Island, and she used to live here in the Northwest, and she said, we got to go to San Antonio. So I think it took us 4 hours to get up there, and we went and had food. We ended up doing the river thing and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
It's a
we have a
wonderful,
lot of good restaurants. All
really good food. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a tourist town too, and it's a medical city. It's very diversified. It's really nice.
Well, I recommend people doing the river trip because one of the things you get to see the architecture, which is really from the 1920s. And what I was so impressed was the lock system that was put in. I guess you had a major flood in the 1920s. Here's my history again. But I thought that was so fascinating that they have the system that will relieve the flooding. But at the same time, when it's dry and nice, you've got this wonderful program that you can go wandering around and stop off and eat and go shopping. Very, very intriguing.
Yeah, it extended all the way to the north and south to the missions. So we have 5 missions, and Alamo is just one of them.
Yeah,
Downtown. It's really nice.
it's very nice.
Yeah. So come on down.
Mandy is raising her hand.
Yes.
James Martin just wants you to know that he doesn't have access to camera's microphone. He is listening and he's enjoying it.
Okay.
Whatever he knows, not stalking, and just tell you congratulations, Wondra.
Thank you.
Yay, James.
And I wanted to say, Wondra, when I first met you, we talked on the phone for how long did we talk on the phone?
Yeah, we talked for about 2 hours. We were laughing like crazy. She knows my whole life story.
It was so much fun. And it's so cool because I thought, when you said that about, like authors writing, all of us know how hard it can be. And it's a struggle sometimes to get everything done. And, but when you said that, like you were writing in a second language, it didn't even click with me until you told, and it just blew my mind. Like how what Robert said, how he's just so impressed with what you've done. And me too. It's very, you are an inspiration.
Oh,
You are.
Yeah, I
imagine
think about you a lot, Mandy, because that's when you told me I had a child at age 16 and I didn't graduate from high school, and I said, well, I might have come from this country that went through a lot of stuff, but I didn't have that difficulties. So I feel like I can never write a memoir because there's nothing remarkable about my life.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Can you guys imagine going to Korea and writing a book and getting selected by a book club in Korea and having to do this? I'm like, I guess it's kind of just click with me too. And I was trying to explain some things to Wondra today, but I'm going to be more patient with you, Wondra, because it blows my mind. We just assume that everybody knows things, but everybody's listening. Just be honest, say, I do not get this, and we will get you through it. We will get you through it. So I'm glad you're here. And in the article, you guys, that was written, she says she's got mapped out 2 more books. And
Yes.
I guarantee you the next book will not take as long as that.
Right, because when I was writing Sonju toward the end, it's like this. I went through my first divorce after 22 years of marriage with 2 kids, and I was 40 some years old, and there was a moment. People always told me I was mature. Even as a child, people told me that. But I was 40 some years old, and I was alone in the house, and there was a moment I still remember. It says, okay, this is what it feels like to be an adult. And I vividly remember that thinking and the sense. And writing this book toward the end, when it was close to turning it over, submitting, I realized now I know what writing is about. I know how to write. That doesn't mean I'm going to write a great book, all that all the time. But I get it because I was learning to write as I was writing this. And it took a long time. It took a lot of effort. I don't mind it because all my life I had to study so hard. Everything I did, I had to, at work, I worked hard and all of that. So I got that sense. So second book is a lot easier. I'm approaching it a little differently. So it's faster. But I want to be very careful with it. I don't want to be sloppy because I am 75 years old and I don't know how many books I have left. So I feel like, okay, it's not about making money because I retired, my biggest strength is that I can live very nicely on very little money. I know how to do that. So that is not an issue. So I want to stretch myself. So I don't, a lot of people ask me, are you going to have a sequel? I said, no, I want to stretch myself. So my next book happens over 4 days. And I have 3 protagonists, all first point of view. So it happens over 4 days. And they didn't even, 3 of them, well, 3 protagonists, but they didn't even really know each other that well. 2 of them, they met, they haven't met for last 30 years. And so at the end of 4 days, they all converge, something happens, the tragedy happens in a little village, and they change forever. So that's what the story is. So it has a lot of internal thing going on, right? On all 3 people. So it's much harder for a person like me having to do that in foreign language, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try. So I'm about halfway done. My 3rd book, I wrote, the way I approach is I know the beginning, middle, and end. I know the story. And then I have to come up with a title. And then I sit in front of TV because I think about it all the time. I think about it when I walk, I think about it when I cook. And so it's basically putting the words down and finding the exact word that I'm trying to describe and put it in an order such that it's not just a regular sentence. I have to have, something unique about it. That's what I strive for anyway. So this has to do, the second novel has to do with internal state of people, where 3rd novel, it's going to have magical realism element in it, a sculpture, and the title is the golly, my age, revolutionary, the monk and the revolutionary. So the monk is a female, revolutionaries. So he was involved in government upheaval. So he was a revolutionary. We went through that a lot in Korea throughout the history. So he's running away from the government. The government wants him because he was a leader of a demonstration. And so he is hiding in the deep woods, and he's a sculptor. So his pursuit at that time was seeking perfection in art. So that's going to be a challenge for me too, to describe what that is like, right? I have to show them what his sculpture looks like and why it, you know, so it's about obsession. So that's going to be hard too. But, you know, I mean, I don't want to write the same story over and over. So that's my plan.
Have you ever heard of a program? I was just thinking about how you were talking about, you know, the little weird words like the, you know, grammar stuff. Have you heard of Pro Writing Aid?
Huh?
It's a program called Pro
I don't use
Writing
any,
Aid.
I don't use any of that stuff. You know, I learned word processor. I don't think I use all the features, but I'm comfortable with what I know.
Well, it would just help, like with the English stuff. You know how like where you use it. It's really it's not very expensive, and you just
like
can
articles and prepositions and all that. It does. It does. Okay.
Yes.
We could all use that. We could all use that. It's called Pro Writer.
Yeah.
So
You might
does
want
it replace word processor,
you know, it's
or it just
the only
screens
one.
it?
You can just when say you've written a chapter.
Yeah.
You can just click on Pro Writing Aid. It will pick up sticky sentences. It picks up weird grammar. I like it just for the grammar because I hate commas, drive me up the wall. So just that little stuff like that. It like long sticky sentences that, you know, just are too long, don't make sense. It'll just highlight them and then show you, cut this out. I use the word just 50,000 times. So it like, you know,
But
tell you,
yeah.
knock it off. Yeah. But you might really like that, Wondra.
Yeah, I might try
not
that.
in your writing style or whatever, but just to help so you don't have to think too hard on that stuff.
Is it an app?
So you can think on it's an app.
Okay.
Pro Writing Aid.
Pro Writing. Yeah, I have heard of it.
You might like it.
Hi, Chandra. I have to say that this is Antonina, your new friend. I have to say that I'm so happy to have met you because I see a lot of similarities in experiences. I think we arrived in America about the same time. And we know America, you know, as it was 50 years ago. So, and then listening to you about your experiences in writing and, you know, the challenges, because with me, my background, my father was a linguist and my first degree is in languages, French and Russian languages and literature. So I wrote a lot of papers, especially from my Russian program. It had to be all in English. So I did have some experience of writing here in the States. But nonetheless, I find myself, and I just want to ask you, because I know like 5-6 languages. So sometimes when I write, there is a word that pops up in one language, which is like perfect. But, you know, if you want to translate it directly into English, it just doesn't make sense, or it's not the same. So you have to think and go around of describing that same thing that you want to say to really sound really acceptable and actually nice in English to grab like the American audience. So it is challenging when you're dealing with a few languages when you're writing a book. And I really appreciate everything that I'm hearing and all of the suggestions of people. But yes, I use the word processor like you, and of course Googling things back and forth like crazy. So, from the one language to the other. And so sometimes a word will sound so good in Spanish, what I want to say, but you can't translate it in English the same way it doesn't sound, and Bulgarian and English and all of that. So it's interesting, writing a book is really interesting.
Well, I don't worry heck of a lot about those grammatical problems that I have because of the differences in language. What I struggle more is how to write a sentence, paragraph more. When I read other people's books,
like descriptive.
There are some really elegant writing, and some are very gritty and realistic and gripping. It's like that with Francine Rodriguez writing. It's very gripping and realistic and, edgy. And I envy that. I cannot do that. I just can't. So mine is more about how do I describe this psychology? The reporter asked me, oh, since you are a psychotherapist, it must have been easier for you to write. But in psychology notes, therapy notes, you use more clinical terms, right? You don't describe, I don't describe patients' inner thoughts and inner feelings. I write down what she says, what she looked like, that kind of stuff. And mine is more, I want it to be very accurate about how the person feels and thinks and things. And I am not there. I cannot get there yet. I don't know if I will. I might get close to it, but that is what I struggle with as a foreign language. I don't think I'll ever have a full command of English. And the odd thing is, it has been 1970, so it has been over 50 years, and I haven't used Korean. I was too busy going to school, going to work, raising kids, and I haven't had contact with the Koreans, so I didn't speak Korean. And I cannot translate my book into Korean. We have to hire I understand. I talk at night. I talk in English, so I must think in English, and even in my dream.
This is funny, you know why? Because I hired somebody to translate my book in Bulgarian. So it's going to be published in Bulgarian. And they asked me, why don't you translate it yourself? And I thought, no way, I'll have somebody else do it. I can read whatever, because they might have problems with some of the expressions that we have, like everyday expressions in English, to translate in Bulgarian. But I really didn't even think about doing it in Bulgarian. I don't know. It was easier for me to write it in English, seriously.
I used to have exchange students through Rotary International, and I've had three, one from the Czech Republic, one from Japan. I had a young girl from Japan and another boy from Germany. And David stayed with us the longest, and he was with us about a year, multiple families. And when he went back, he forgot how to speak German. He was a senior in high school, and he spoke so much English when he was here. He said he dreamed in English. He said he went back and he was having a hard time conversing with his parents. Really? So there's something about submersion in a language that does, create those things. And it's really interesting. I found it fascinating because he never wanted to speak German. I didn't learn one word the whole time he was with us because all he wanted to speak was English. Yeah. And until the day he said, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, what's the famous saying that Arnold used to say? Make my day. What was it?
I'll be back.
I'll be
No,
back.
it was something about, yeah, something like that. And I'm looking at him, and I noticed Wondra said, y'all, you said whatnot, and you've picked up just the colloquialisms of, Texas slang.
Yeah.
When you start saying, I'm going to hook my Perot up to a stub, I'll know you've been to East Texas. But language is interesting. And I had an author years ago, Paulina Porskova, who was from the Czech Republic. She wrote a wonderful book. And I had her as a keynote speaker. She's an international model, but she wanted to be a librarian. But she wrote her book in her 5th language.
Wow.
Her first language was Czech. She spoke Swiss, French. I'm trying to think what all languages she spoke, but English was the last, like the 5th one. And that's what she wrote her book in. And I just think, well, how hard would that be? But, look at Antonina. You speak how many languages?
6.
And, my ex-husband spoke like 7. So
Wow.
we went to Mexico, and he's talking away to all these people. And I go, you don't speak Spanish? He goes, no, but I speak Italian. And
Oh,
Yeah.
this is
he was-
funny. That's
he was
that's
able
how
to
my
carry on
husband is in
complete
France.
conversations. And I was like,
Wondra, I would like to just say that, I mean, there's a spareness in your writing that I admire, and I think that it's very elegant. And I'm just going to read this one little paragraph. Back in her room, she sat leaning on the wall and stared blankly, with not even a fingertip moving. Beyond her window, one bright orange persimmon hung on a leafless branch. A brown bird flew over and perched. The persimmon fell. And that one sentence, the persimmon fell, that last resonant image of that scene is just lovely. And I think that your writing style serves your story beautifully. So I say, study other writers and try to be the best writer that you can be. But I say, be Wondra Chang.
absolutely. And your book got, what was it, the best 2021? What was it? What did it say in that article about the best writing? You were considered one of the best writers of 2021 in that newspaper feature. So, hey.
Oh, my book was one of the 100 Kirkus best indie books. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, that's pretty amazing when you consider 1 million books are being published these days.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
a friend of mine who also joined the Pulpwood Queen and Reading Corner, and Colleen Barnes-Durda, she wrote a memoir. She talked to you. She thought about coming to the convention, but she's from Minneapolis, and she wrote a memoir about bipolar. Called
Yeah.
The Second. And she writes very well, and she has gone through it, so she knows. And I don't know why I started talking about this.
No, it's okay. We actually read a book about exactly that same thing, written by Andy Berman, called Electro Boy. He was bipolar and manic depressive. I could not put that book down. I didn't understand that book until I read it, because it was his life story. And that we need to know, just like all the books on autism, there's different types of autism. There's all kinds of, people dealing with all kinds of disabilities that show and don't show. And those are the stories that interest me, because we can't understand it unless we read about it. And then,
yeah, I mean, being a therapist really helps, really, because when you are a therapist, you experience lives, other people's lives,
yes,
as such an intimate, intense way.
yes,
That's why they come to you. And so just observing, I'm in a habit, because of my training, I'm in a habit of observing people. And so I do that. You know, some people find coins on the street all the time. That's not me. But I find like flowers, trees, you know, that kind of stuff. And I watch people. And it helped me. So it doesn't matter if the writers know what this person has exactly gone through, right? Every character in the book. And I start with their background, you know, what the history is. And so this person had experienced trauma, and she has a startle reaction. She, you know, she gets really emotional real quick, reactive kind of thing. And so I have to understand each character very well. And it helps because I'm a therapist. You know, I know how with person with this kind of background, how they behave, how they react, how they think. So that helps. But it's still hard to, I have an idea what this person goes through, what the feelings are. And sometimes Korean words are perfect to describe it. Sometimes some things of English is more perfect, but I just have a hard time. That is my challenge, hard time getting it exactly right. And in this book, I don't think I got it exactly right. I got close to it, but I like you said, Robert, I like to be minimal. That's how I live, and that's how I think, and that's what I like. So I might write like the second novel I'm writing. I wrote like about 40,000 words, and I got rid of 10,000 because, well, this is not necessary. This is unnecessary. I just get rid of it. I eliminate it, and I just get to the point.
It's
Well, I
fascinating.
nothing to worry about. You're an amazing storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what your next look into the book bring.
Me too.
I think, you know, people talk about, I hear a lot about writer's block. And at age 10, 5 short stories a day of my own making, my title and short stories. And I think that really, really trained me to weave, to be able to weave the story. You know, Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, do you know the story about that? He read in the paper one time that a young, attractive woman threw herself into the running train to kill herself. And he read that newspaper, and that was the impetus for Anna Karenina. And I can do the similar thing. Like I read a book called what do they call it? Jenny Oldfield's book. It's a real small book, and it's an experimental book. It's an experimental book. And the protagonist is the relationship, the marriage. It doesn't even talk about the husband's name or Department of Speculation. That is the title. It's a good book you may want to read. And the protagonist is a relationship. So it never mentions the names, husband's name or wife. It says husband, wife, child. And I thought it's a study about marriage. And I thought, one day I might want to write about, you know, about a marriage. The second one, the one I'm working on, I lived in a clan village for a while. That's when I wrote 5 stories a day. And there was a woman all of a sudden appeared to this village, remote village. And there was this man, he probably was in his 40s or 50s. He didn't have a lot of property. He was an old man. I was little, he looked like an old man. But anyway, all of a sudden, this beautiful woman came to his house. And she's supposed to be his new wife. I don't know if he was ever married. And I saw her after I heard that rumor. I saw her and she was beautiful. She was well dressed. She was poised. And I was thinking, there must be a story. There is a story there. Why would a woman from Seoul, big city, come to this little town to a man who is, who is not remarkable in any way? So that must be a story. That became my story for the second novel, what happened to the woman. So I kind of think like that, something, there is one thing, then I can start reading a story. And so I hope I don't ever get a writer's block. I don't think I will.
I just heard Alice Hoffman talk about it, and she said the only thing that got rid of our writer's block, she had it during COVID, was writing. She goes, I just started writing and got over it. And sometimes that's just what you have to do till you get back on track. So I don't have any trouble with writer's block. Does anybody else here have any trouble?
Well, I don't call it writer's block, but I think that being able to quiet my mind is the biggest challenge sometimes. Just to be able to sit down and focus. I think that at times is my biggest challenge, to quiet my mind just to focus on the task at hand.
Right. That's how I am. I need at least 2 or 3 hour block to be alone. And once I start writing, I totally focus. So that's what I should do more often for me to lose weight, because I forget to eat, I forget to drink, I don't even go to the bathroom, and I just write.
Well, I have to say, one of the funniest memories over a girlfriend's weekend was, I think, the last night where we had the award ceremony and everyone was dressed up, and Wondra was so sweet and explained that you had the skirt over your head.
Yeah.
No, I had a skirt. I didn't know what to do. I'm not. I talk about Kathy to my husband. I said she has a flair. She puts all this, really all these colors, and she does things with her hair, and it just suits her. I mean, she looks great, and she has this drama. You have this drama going. I don't have any drama. I think it's growing up in Confucius Nation, maybe. And so probably the worst thing, the closest thing I got is in my 50s, I wore hot pants and mini skirts. But other than that, I don't wear makeup. I don't, so so some people can pull it off like, Kathy does. And so I didn't have anything. I'm not gonna, it was cold and I'm not gonna wear old party dress. So I didn't know what to do. That's the only red I had. So I just put a skirt over.
To me, the best costumes are just made up ones, because at our book and film club, Robert, the other night, Ruthie and I were there, and I had ordered a nun's outfit. It didn't come. So I was explaining to Ruthie what I did. And I basically put on my black coat backwards. And then I took a white t-shirt and clipped it tight around my head, and then put a jacket upside down to create the drape. And it looked like a nun's outfit, didn't it, Ruthie?
It looked exactly like.
And now I'm thinking, what I ordered that nun's outfit for? It was just
Except when you kept trying to pull it down.
The jacket was velvet, so it was like kept pulling my. I kept looking like I was having a receding hairline. But when I was a kid, we didn't have money for costumes, so we would just come up with stuff out of our closets, and I remember the year that I went as Phyllis Diller to the children's Halloween party, and I had on my mother's go-go boots, short, pointy-toed, and a mini sequin dress with one of my mom's Marilyn Monroe wigs, teased, and a cigarette lighter. And when I walked up the drive for, because it was in this garage, I said, Fang, where's Fang? You would have, I mean, everybody was like, oh my God, what is that? You know, everybody else is like Superman and Cinderella, and here comes Phyllis Diller. But that's just, you know, I grew up with a lot of drama in my house. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, you know,
But it suits you. It suits you. Actually, you remind me of the painter that I talk about here. Do you remember the painter, the artist?
yes.
She wears layers of different colors and it flows, and you remind me of her.
Well, I'm glad I remind people of somebody. Hey, it was
I
funny.
wrote that before I met you. If I met you, I might have even added some more.
Well, it
works for you.
Ruthie?
Yeah, so I want to go back to the writer's block thing. So, you know, I'm juggling a lot of different things all at once, you know, and kind of working on nonfiction, and then my first novel, and then my practice. And then I also have creativity that wants to come out in lots of ways, in visual ways. And so for me, it's like, I just wondered if anybody else notices sort of like seasons of energy around their writing. So like, I don't like to think of it like I'm blocked, but I do notice when the energy begins to wane, and I have to call it what, you know, Jung called the fertile void. It's like, I know there's fertility in it. I know there's germination of ideas, and that will come. If I think of it as a block or a wall, it just creates such resistance in me. So I have to kind of say, well, you know, I'm just in a season now of germination, and then I know that there will be a surge again that will lift me up. If I start to put a label on the state that I'm in, then I know I will get paralyzed around it. And if something happened, like, so I let somebody read too early, I think, what I'm working on now. And the feedback I got was, I think probably good feedback, something I needed, but I was too vulnerable really to receive it. I was, I think, starting to fall in love with what I was creating, you know. And I know that you have to take a scalpel and cut it all up at some point, but I was still in this sort of tender place. And so what happened is that I did shut down. And I came, you know, I got ideas, but I came back to it. And it was like, no, I'm still too tender. I still feel too vulnerable right now. But I have to trust that that isn't a writer's block exactly. It's a pause, you know, that's filling up something maybe. I don't know if anybody else has that kind of less linear.
I think, Ruthie, I mean, I think that writing a novel is like is being in a relationship. I mean, there are moments of passion, complacency, discontentment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it's like for me. You'll have moments where you love it and moments that you hate it. You wake up in the morning thinking, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm onto something," and then you'll go to bed that night thinking, "Oh my God, I'm a total hack."
Yes.
But Ruthie, always don't let one person determine if you thought you were on the right track, talk to somebody else. You know, I think so many times people, you have to listen to your own voice. And as far as words, be careful of choice of words, because writer's block denotes negativity.
Yeah.
And I always think about the hairdresser that said, how do you know when you've done I was at a workshop. He said, how do you know when you've done a good color? And somebody said, well, because it came out right. He goes, wrong. He goes, to be a good colorist, you have to know what to do when things go really, really wrong. And he said, so don't ever say you made a mistake with that color. You discovered that didn't work. And I noticed on myself whenever I would do something, because I'm always saying I'm such an idiot. No, you're not an idiot. We only learn through our discoveries. So I now try to train myself to say, whoa, I discovered that didn't work. And it makes me laugh every time. Sounds way better than, mistakes or writer's block. You could say, I discovered that wasn't the way to go. Doesn't that change a lot?
Yeah.
Your word.
Well, I think it's good, Ruthie, that you are aware
Yes.
of what's going on. The part that I struggled with writing Sonju is, okay, Sonju and her husband, they're so different. And I have to show dialogues. What do they talk about? I really didn't have any idea what they would talk about. So I had to go to him being the second son and not having any decision-making, participation in it. And he will not get any property, inherited. So, I just go back to that. But I struggled with that. And I don't consider that writer's block because I write other parts, but I'm still thinking about it. I just work on other parts. That's another thing I do when an idea, I saw a woman at the car dealership to get my car done, checked out. I saw this woman, she was sitting down. I mean, I am, if you come down to San Antonio, you will see I'm a big eater. I love food. I think about food all the time, all day long. But this woman sat down and, they give you this bananas and oranges and donuts and coffee and all of that. My color, Toyota car dealership does. And she sat down and she had this big cup she brought. She drinks, she eats, I mean, the way she was eating. And I just watched with awe, and there is some big need there, right? And I just described her, and I may use that at some point in my writing. So that's how it happens to me. So when some great sentence or paragraph comes to me, I just write it down. I just save it. And like I'm studying this, I'm writing this, but I come up with some idea of what they say or what happens. Then I just put it wherever I think it may, and I highlight those things. And that's just my system. I think every author has developed his or her own system. And, all this thing about the write down pencil or whatever it is that you call, that is not a big deal. You just gotta write the way that's your way, and that, that's comfortable to you, that comes naturally to you because you have your own rhythm, own pattern of thinking and seeing things.
Gosh, we're flying through the time. Does anybody else have a burning question for Wondra? Because it's getting a little.
I will answer anything.
Anybody else have any comments?
Wondra, I'm wondering if you've dreamed of having your book hit the bookshelves in Korea. And do you think that they will see? I've started your book. I just got it this week, but do you think that they will see? I think it's going to get rave reviews, first of all. I really do. But I just wonder if you've dreamed about that, because I've lived in other countries, but I've never immigrated to another country. I've never been a citizen in another country. And I'm just interested in that. I've worked with authors who write in other languages first, and they are so proud of having their books on the shelves in English, and yet I'm in awe that when it's translated, it's still on that on all these other shelves all over the world, being read in all these other languages, and yet it goes right here. And I just wondered if you thought about that yet. Because as you were talking, I was thinking, boy, when it gets to Korea.
Well, I won't be able to translate it, and
I'm not saying you'd have to translate it.
my publisher is looking, there's a different contract for foreign language, right? Foreign language rights and all of that stuff in publishing world. So she told me that she has an agent now. So I don't know when it's going to be done. But if I stayed in Korea, I didn't plan on coming to America. I just happened to marry an American and I had to move here. But if I stayed in Korea, I think I would have gotten into writing much, much earlier. That's why I went to School of Journalism, and the teacher that oversaw my writing when I was 10 years old, 5 stories a day. And he was a teacher. And I came here and I went back to Korea. My cousins are much younger than I, and they were reading a children's book, right? And so I picked it up and read it, and it has my Korean name. My Korean name is Sunwon. It's not Wondra. I mean, Americanized. That tells you about, in 70, that tells you about America. When I changed, think about that. Why did I have to change my name? Anyway, it was Sunwon, and that is not a common name in Korea. And I saw that the characters, the protagonist's name was Sunwon. So I picked it up and I looked at the cover. It was my teacher. Yeah, it was my teacher. So he became a novelist. So yeah, I meant to visit. So,
is he still alive? Do you know?
No. He passed away.
Oh, wow. I want to know what that book was.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going to have to ask my cousins if they remember.
Oh, wow. What an honor for you.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, I am so lucky because there are so many people along the way that were very good to me, and they made quietly very positive impact on me. I am so lucky with people. And another thing, people ask, because I seem to be doing this and that and whatever, marketing, all of that. And they ask, how do you do it? And it's very simple. You have to be present. It's just like parenting, right? You have to be present to be a good parent. You have to be present, and you have to be present, and you have to make friends. You have to make connections. I mean, I don't have anybody. That's what I tell people, like Gemini Inc. Executive director. I have lunch with her once in a while. That is a literary arts center in San Antonio. It's the biggest one. And I tell her, I do not have money. I do not have influence. I don't have connections. What I have is ideas. I have ideas because I was a marketing director at one time for a computer software company in Houston. And I didn't know anything about computers, as you know. But I read like crazy. And when the whole company went out of town, there was a thing called Comdex. I don't know if they still have it in Las Vegas every fall. And they had in Atlanta in spring. So all the staff members will go to set up booth for it. And I'm left, and I'm the only one, basically, I'm the only one that's left to field the telephone, and they ask you technical questions. So I'm not gonna lie. I said, I'm alone. I don't know. So you're gonna teach me. So they are calling to complain and they teach me and they're not unhappy anymore. So I establish a lot of relationships just on the phone, like I do with you on Facebook. And and when I went to Comdex myself, we met and we became close friends, and that's how it happens in my life. You got to be present, and you got to be willing to connect. And I think that helps a lot, and they say writers are loners and things like that. That's not me. I have to, the reason why I don't have time to do more reading is because, I have friends and I go, if my friends want to meet some, I go there. Sometimes I create events on my own to have my friends over, get together. And I love parties. I love to give parties. So I'm always thinking about, okay, where can I get good crackers, right size, because I'm thinking about always charcuterie and, that kind of stuff. So I think you need other people.
Yeah.
You need other people. You learn and you get support. And I belong to American Association of University Women, AAUW. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it.
Did any?
I belong. I belong. And I
The mission is
somebody who's really
women's advancement.
involved.
And I'll
She's a
tell you,
librarian that I went to school with at AAUW.
it's a wonderful group. Kathy, I am a Rotarian. I'm a Paul Harris Fellow.
Me too.
Yeah. I
That's
didn't
so
donate
cool.
money. I did service. And so they gave it to me because we had a big function and I handled it, about 200 people. So events. So anyway, I belong to a lot of organizations and I really like AAUW the best because they're like sisters. When the husband, at our age, husbands die or something, they all come together. And for my book launch at Twig Bookstore, I ordered 70 copies because I counted all the numbers and I thought I can sell 70. So I asked him to order 70. He said, okay, we'll let you know when we get the books in. And then I get a phone call and said, no, you supply your own books.
At the
They're not
Twig?
going to order. And they even called my publisher. So my publisher texted me, said, Wondra, I have seen this happen before. I just want to see you disappointed. If you sell 20, that is considered very good. So I didn't say anything. I brought my 75 books. And the first day I knew I couldn't do it in one day. So I decided to do it in 2 days, Thursday and Friday. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday. So the first day I sold 55 copies.
Wow.
And the next day it poured like rain and I still sold 22 copies.
Oh my goodness.
And it broke Twig's record and they did not stock it. So, that's what happened. And so, well, my publisher said it doesn't happen to everybody.
I love that story. I love it.
And
But why didn't they provide the books?
Because they didn't want to be stuck with I told them, I'll guarantee you I'll sell 70. If there's leftover, my daughter will buy it, my husband will buy it. I mean, they can buy it for Christmas present, right? For their
major
and
problem.
they wouldn't do it.
That's awesome. Love
that. Anyway, so I felt like, okay, next time maybe I'll have it somewhere else. But yeah, so that was.
You got all the profit. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, the AAUW people, they bought multiple copies, and they show up every time I have something going. It's wonderful.
Well, listen, That sounds like a good organization to join.
Yeah, it
Rotarians
is.
are that way
Yeah.
too. Did you go speak
Yeah,
to your
and
local
we are
Rotary Club?
friends. Yeah, we are friends. We see each other often. So that's the thing. I think, you know, you have to have people who support you over and over and over. And you know, I feel so lucky to have that. You know, I don't do anything different. I just show up.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. You guys, we are running over and I hate to call it quits, but Wondra is on our blog this week. The Pulpwood Queen presents her authors and she's got it figured out now. So
Maybe.
no, you're doing great. Your posts are wonderful. I'm enjoying them so much. I'm also enjoying all my little things that you sent me from Korea that are all, I put everything pretty much on my tree. But I love this so much. I cannot thank you enough. These are very special because they came from you. And I want one thing, when we get together, I want you to teach me how to play mahjong.
Oh, okay.
I was in a play in high school where I played a literary agent from Greenwich Village, and she was always running off to play mahjong. And of course, I love that film. I know everybody laughs, but I love Crazy Rich Asians when they had that mahjong thing going on. I've got to learn how to play that. So when we get together, we're going to have some time where we learn how to play. Do you have a group? Do you have a group that you meet with?
Well, that was another group. It's called, I tell you, I used to join a lot of groups. It's a San Antonio Newcomers Group when I moved here. And I started that mahjong group and I taught. I'm not a good mahjong player, but I think I'm a pretty good teacher.
Okay, that's all I want.
Yeah, let's do that. Come down first. And
okay.
You have to experience.
I used to take the train to San Antonio all the time because my daughter lived there because her husband worked for University of Texas in San Antonio. And
really?
Now they're in Denton at Texas Women's University, but I love San Antonio. So it's a long ways though, y'all. It's a 12-hour train ride.
Is it?
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's so much fun. So we will keep that on let's get this COVID thing licked and we can move on. But thank you so much. What a great
thank you so
conversation.
much for being here.
And thank you, Antonina, for being here. And Suzanne Kamada is in Japan.
Oh, yeah, from Japan. That's right.
Yeah, and
like
Mandy's in Florida. And Jacob is in Amarillo, Texas. So we're just kind of all over the place. And
yeah. Mandy, I am a Facebook friend with somebody who lives in your island, on your island.
Joe Palmer?
I don't think it's Joe Palmer. He grew up there.
And those islanders that are readers that are all in all the different groups. Like there's a bunch.
I want to go to your island.
John Grisham lives there.
Yeah.
She's with all the famous people.
So there's it's big writers. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of is it a woman or a man?
Man. It's a man. I'll give you that name because I wrote it down. He said, "Oh, this is where Mandy's from." She may know this guy because I really want to go to that island and eat seafood. See, I talk about food all the time.
And play mahjong. There you go, man.
Play mahjong. I haven't played that for a long time. I taught my grandkids how to play.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, we look forward to your post in the morning.
Okay.
That will be up before 9. So
yeah, I will try to get up early.
It's all right. It's all right.
I stay up so late.
We're doing fine. And did Kathy leave? Because she's up next week, right? Kathy Ramsberger, she's gone, right?
Yeah, she had to hop off.
I know. I'll get in touch.
What
with
is
him.
the movie for this Saturday?
Oh, it's a high wind in Jamaica, and it's about I watched it when I was a child, and it's the story about how these pirates take over this ship and they don't realize that the hold has all these children in it. And this little girl that's in this, that's very brave, she just struck me as I just honed in on her and her relationship with the head pirate. It's called A High Wind in Jamaica, and it stars, oh my gosh, why am I going blank? Oh, Anthony Quinn.
Oh,
Anthony Quinn and oh, another famous actor, James Coburn. You
oh,
guys, it's
tough guys.
set in the 60s, and it's fabulous, and it's
Okay.
yeah. And so so I hope to see you there Saturday night, and Robert's gone too. But anyway, and I'm trying to think. Oh, and then this Saturday or this Friday, I'm doing my Mama Cat's book club with Adriana Trigiani at 9:30 in the morning, Central Standard Time. And Saturday, Janet Oakley, who's gone, is doing our writers club at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so if you're into historical research and everything, you want to be there. And then Saturday night, Robert and I are doing a high wind in Jamaica. So we've had a busy Valentine week. So you all happy Valentine's Day. And thank you for my lovely, all my Valentine's things. My whole house is just getting filled with all these treasures. So I really love being here. And
I even put it there there is a group called the Fourth Kingdom.
what's
The
that?
Fourth Kingdom. They realize some of these Korean sites, I repost, I share about all this art and buildings and all
I
of that.
love your posts. Love them.
They figured out that I posted on Pulpwood. So now they are putting it directly there. Did you notice that?
Yes.
And the Fourth Kingdom is another group, and you have to be a Korean American. And all these people, young people, they are authors, brilliant authors. Their debut books are all over the places, very good books. And they're all like Ivy League school graduates and all of that. And I'm the oldest one there, and they ignored me for a long, long, long time. Now they are responding a little bit because I put the Pulpwood Queen, I put it there. I share it there so that they will join. And, a few joined, I've noticed. So hopefully more will.
All these connections are being made. I actually got an email today from a woman that she asked to be my friend she's in Atlanta, Georgia. Robert's gone, but she is a classical award-winning Indian singer. Her name is Madhura, Baghat. And we talked all afternoon. I had a wonderful time. I got to hear her sing. She's on YouTube. I've shared some posts, but all these connections are just opening the world to me as I sit in my little cabin in the woods. So I just cannot tell you how I look forward to Tuesday Night Book Club. And I'm thankful for all of you coming. Please come back, and it's all up on our calendar events on our website. So
Well, nice seeing you all. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed that evening a lot.
We'll come
It
back.
was
Great.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Conversation. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Wondra, for inviting her.
Great.
And thank you, Jacob, for being here. I
Thank
think
you, Jacob.
you've got a package coming, so I hope it gets there. It's UPS, so let me know when it does. And
Okay, I will.
everybody, we'll see you next time. I love y'all.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Keep reading. Bye-bye.